and I hope everyone appreciates this. We are certainly, well, in Asia, the holidays are over. This is the big celebration today, this side of the Pacific, in San Francisco, which is the mother of all Chinatown parades, which always takes place in the rain. And the weather, of course, is at the least inclement when it's not raining, and it's inclement today. I am not participating in the festivities because this is my job. Now, the situation being that at the estates, my son's husband does not trust, and I don't blame him for this, anyone else with the security of the Blood Boys in an environment like San Francisco for a field trip without my being present. So we could not have them witness the Chinatown Parade this year, because this year the Chinatown Parade falls on Sunday night, my transmission night. And this is, of course, a transmission night that in other times I could go there for a few hours, but it starts at approximately 5 p.m., 5:30. There was just no point in us doing anything preliminary, and then my abandoning shall we say, my son and the Blood Boys in San Francisco, which is always a dangerous environment anyway, without my, shall we say, accompaniment. So we just agreed to have preset what we did with our activities before the parade day. And I'll go a bit into the history of that as we continue to talk to other people. But in the interim, while I'm talking about this, why don't you bring everybody on, dear Aristides, and then we can have you do your blurb, which will be important because I do want. Or do you want to do that right now? You want to do the blurb first, and don't forget to emphasize.
Yeah, somebody will jump on and then I'll interrupt that. So yeah.
Good point. Yeah, and not only that, if you could do me a favor and emphasize how badly we need people to start putting upvotes on my commentary. I always pin a comment. It's so important to upvote that. After the program uploads, yeah.
Yeah, so if you remember to come back, or while you're here listening, go check the previous one in another window, etc. Yeah, please upvote comments, positive comments, Douglas's comments underneath the program window. Also, as soon as you get here, no matter what, please upvote the live show with the thumbs up. It's right next to the thumbs down button, which doesn't show any thumbs down, but they are placed by enemies of Douglas and sometimes with bots. And this is all important because of the algorithm of YouTube, and it will affect his ability to be seen and suggested and searched, and to do what he does, and find listeners and make income. So please do that, and then slide over and make sure the subscribe button is on, even if you were previously. Just check that, and the notification bell is on, so you always can be sure to know when the program starts on time or otherwise. And if you're really ambitious, you can go under your account settings, and under your main account that you already have, you can create sub channels, which are normally for partitioning different types of content. You don't have to do that. You can just create one, and they can do separate upvotes. So I have just placed more than one upvote, even though I'm one person, and you can do the same as well. And the donation link is in the chat. You can also share the link to the program, the youtube.com/whatever it is. That will be the same after the program. It doesn't change. So you can drop that places and help Douglas be discovered. So hopefully that's good for now. Let me work on bringing people on, because.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And so allow me to say hello to everyone who's inside of the chat. T-Tank Berry, Vril is, of course, our man, Aristides himself, Eric Cradle. Shout out to all of you. And understand that certainly it's always a pain for me to miss the Chinatown Parade, which these days more and more each year tends to be on Sundays as opposed to Saturdays. And it changes with each year depending on the how the Asian Lunar New Year pans out, because the Asian Lunar New Year is obviously on a totally different calendar that's well over 4,000 years old, bordering on 5,000 years of age, whereas the Gregorian calendar is much younger, runs on a Solarian cycle as opposed to lunisolar, or both based upon the sun and the moon as the Chinese calendar is. And as a result, the situation is that each year, Asian Lunar New Year is in a different month. It's going to be either in late January, sometime during February, or very early March. And as a result, it ends on a different day. And after that, the San Francisco Chinatown Parade is arranged, it's arranged long before then, months beforehand, based on how the calendrical system will pan out by the San Francisco Merchants Association. And so the San Francisco Merchants Association, which has a preponderant Chinese influence, will then decide when the parade will take place. And I want to thank Heather Holman for joining us. Oh my God. And Brendan Zogit. And hello to both of you. Before I drone on for a few more minutes, both of you say hi. Let's check your audio. We heard what was a sneeze from Brendan or something sounded like that. Heather, say hi.
Hello.
Hi, dear Heather. Mwah. And shout out to Vinny as well. Semper Fidelis as always. And very glad to have you with us. How are you feeling today, honey?
I'm doing great.
Good, good. You like your new environment?
Yeah, it's nice. We saw a jackrabbit today.
Oh, delightful. Just in your yard, so to speak, or right out the door? Yeah, wonderful.
Yard.
Yeah. Oh, it's so much fun. I so envy you. And you're still in the same state, Arizona.
Right. It's about 20-minute drive from our other place, but it's still like night and day.
I bet.
Yeah.
How so?
Because like yesterday when we were there, getting, because we still got some stuff we're moving back and forth. There was a guy across the street laying in the parking lot, and then there's this other guy who had a bucket of water that he poured on him to make sure that he was alive, I guess, or something. And it was just like, we didn't really know what was going on. You just see this guy laying in the water and a guy standing there with a bucket.
What? Where? This is like your old environment or your new environment?
Yeah, no, this is the old environment. It was in the alley.
Oh my!
Where we lived. Yeah.
I mean, was it always like that, or was this something unusual even for that old environment?
No, it's always like that. Like, there's a shopping cart out there all the time, and like I kept unloading stuff that I didn't really want to move, and so I'd stick it in the shopping cart if someone like wanted it, they could have it. And like people would just grab it up before I even came back down the stairs. Like as soon as it was there, it was like gone.
That's scary as fuck. That's really alarming. Are people that desperate?
Yes.
Oh my.
They are.
God, it's like I'm left without words, and so at least you don't have any of that stuff.
You must have deleted Arizona from your memory. Because
yeah.
If you've ever been there, you would know why.
Touche. Yes, quite so. Yes, and Brendan, I'm sure, well, it sounds a lot like Sacramento or certainly San Francisco, so I guess we have all that in common.
Oh, well, yeah, we're not much better. I just came back from, like, a super hood part of Sacktown.
What were you doing?
Sketchy.
What were you doing there? Dealing in some new herbs, perhaps? Or tell us about this adventure.
I was recovering some artwork. I'll explain it in a bit.
Okay, wonderful, and you look forward.
Have you ever heard of Jim Fitzpatrick?
Jim Fitzpatrick, vaguely.
Book of Conquests, like the Irish revolutionary artist. Okay. The guy that did the Che Guevara, the famous Che Guevara, that guy. Oh
God, that dude. Okay, I can't stand that image, but go on. Yes.
Well, yeah, he regrets it, but he's just famous for that.
Okay, good.
But he did it in the 60s, so we could give him a pass. But he did famous artwork of the Book of Conquest, the Irish histories.
Okay, interesting.
And some classics. Some person was selling their father-in-law's belongings, and I got it for pennies on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and recovered a portfolio of Jim Fitzpatrick's work.
Mm-hmm.
Signed
Wow.
by the author himself.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yes.
I mean, how did you manage this? I mean, was this expensive?
I just
again, we'll discuss that privately. I guess.
No, it was super cheap. No, it was
Okay.
super cheap. That was the thing.
Okay.
People have become so just I don't know.
Ignorant?
Even with the internet, they're just so ignorant. He sold it to me for like
Yeah.
a couple bucks, basically, and it's worth like hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars.
Oh my
It's like
God.
a 70, late, probably early 80s.
It is. It is. Yes.
With his signature and all that. And if you go to his website, he sells them for like £200 for a single print,
Yeah.
for like £100 or something.
Oh my
Which is
God.
like $200 art money, basically, by
Right.
the time you send it over here.
Well, I would argue that people are even more ignorant because of the internet. But go on. Yes.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I was trying to explain to the guy like what was going on with it. Like I was like, "Oh, thanks for saving them for me and all that."
Why?
And
Why
he's,
would
like,
you
sitting
explain
there-
it to him? You mean he might change his
Just to
mind?
be cordial, to be
Okay.
cordial. But he's sitting there drinking a beer, and he's like, "Yeah, it was my father-in-law, and we just inherited all this junk." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's like whatever." And then the guy basically closed the garage on me. he was like, "All right, bye."
Wow.
Didn't give a fuck what it
Thank
was.
God. Thank God. You wouldn't want him to wise up. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have. I don't think he was capable.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Oh, well,
But that's just Sacramento for you.
yeah, that's exciting. He was probably rolling up his garage because was it getting dark and he was afraid.
Yeah, it was getting dark, and
Okay.
it was near the south area, which is like the total hood,
Yeah.
Hoodsville. Or, yeah,
Yeah.
I hightailed it out of there.
Yeah, he wanted security. He was securing himself for the night then, basically.
Oh yeah,
Fortress.
yeah. That area is by the UC Davis Hospital, so it's very sketchy.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Like it's like a war zone at night.
Oh.
But I used to live in those areas. I mean, there's just
I remember.
just do what you do.
Yeah. No,
Just do what you do.
I remember, and all you can do is just put on a front of confidence and go straight to your business and do not do not make
Well,
eye contact.
I'm used to it, but
Yes.
it's just the people out here, like in the nicer areas, like near Folsom and stuff, like they have no fucking idea. They would get just robbed instantly.
Oh yeah. They have no idea.
The Bay Area is like that too.
Of course. Yeah, it is. They especially.
I remember when I
Yeah.
came back from England,
Yeah.
there was some young girl helping me. Like I don't know, the person that was driving me. We stopped to get something to eat.
Yeah.
And she was like, "I hate London right now." Some blonde Taylor Swifty type.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why do you hate London?" I just got back from there because I was trying to explain to her. I just got off the plane.
Uh-huh.
She's like, "Someone just came up and snatched my brand new iPhone." And I was like,
God.
"I was there for like weeks and nothing happened to me." It's just like, why? How do you let that happen? It was
Well, she
crazy.
looked vulnerable. That's why she looked
Yeah,
vulnerable.
she was like
Yeah.
on TikTok, like waving her phone around.
Yeah. And that's how they take it. They take that as an offering. The thugs will just take that as an offering
Right.
and just say,
And then the alternative is knowing Douglas Dietrich and getting basically a personal security detail through Westminster and shit.
you'd have to.
Like I had like snipers on me and shit.
There you go. It's true. By the way, just so people understand, due to his connections with myself in particular, but probably due to other things in his life, I think
Definitely,
that there was a warm up, of course, in your life. But obviously you had things that marked you out, put you on lists. But obviously
Yes.
your ultimate affiliation with myself is what pushed it over the edge into terrorist watch list. So everywhere
It
you
definitely
went.
doesn't help.
Yeah, everywhere you went, you had posted snipers, the men in the Kevlar. How do we say it? Just basically armor.
Paramilitary.
Yeah,
Straight up
paramilitary. Walking.
Like Helsing, like literally full Helsing,
Yes.
full threat level. They were
Yes.
like popping out of corners and stuff, and I was like, "Who the fuck?"
Yeah.
Like, who are they looking for?
Yeah, you. You came to that conclusion. Eventually, you were forced to draw no other conclusion because there was no one else around but you, right? Usually in.
Well, there was like millions of tourists, but it wasn't like it wasn't a normal like they were looking for terrorists. It was
Right.
like every corner I would go, they were like staring right at me.
Yes.
Like literally, I would turn a corner and I would like have to make eye contact.
Yes.
With the military guys, with their hands on the MP5 and shit. Like literally finger on the trigger.
Yes.
Like sitting there like talking in the earphone and shit. And I was just, you know, like, I'm just visiting.
Oh my God!
Like, I could care less about your parliament.
Thank you. Yes.
And they wouldn't let me in. They wouldn't let me into Westminster Abbey.
Oh my God! Tell us about that.
People were like walking in, right? And I walk up, and the lady's like, "Oh, you can't go in." And I said, "Why? Is it not open?" And she said, "No, it's a church service right now." And I said, "Oh, well, I don't mind. You know, I'll go. You know, whatever." And she's like, no, visiting hours is over. And she like, you know, she was like, she was very polite, but she was like, yeah, you can't come in.
Right. No uncertain terms. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I got turned away at Westminster Abbey because, you know, whoever was in her ear was like, don't let that boy in there.
Yes. Yeah. He's one of Alucard's. That's
exactly. Yeah, I wasn't allowed in the church, but, you know, they let me in everything else.
Yeah, there you go. Now, that's interesting. That means the Church of England marked you out. I'm not surprised. That makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Probably due to your allegiance to the church, you know,
yes.
to the universal church.
Yeah, there we are. Yes.
Well, and I'm technically Orthodox.
Yes.
Like on paper, literally on paper.
That's true. Yes.
So.
Yeah.
You know, but I am a minister. I am an ordained minister. So
interesting.
There's no point arguing your point in a situation like that.
No, of course not. No, it would only lead to more. It would just lead to embarrassment, on everybody's side. And so I'm glad you rolled with it. And it's exactly as Brendan says. There's different forces involved with all of this, and they're recognized internationally as much as Americans don't recognize us domestically. And I do hope. Let's take a look at our calendar here now. For those,
I'm sure they'll be real happy that I'm buying. What's his name? Fitzpatrick's artwork and shit. Because he's like hardcore Irish revolutionary.
That's right.
He's ready to kill all the Brits and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. That's
but
true.
it's purely mythological. Nothing. Yeah. I don't know the guy or anything. So just for the record.
Yeah. No. Got it. Yes, and important to emphasize these things because people just they can't communicate. They really can't. They need to be. They need everything explained these days. Everybody, including the authorities, needs everything articulated.
I don't know how like on point they are at the borders, but I'm sure if they saw me bringing that shit in, they would definitely flag me.
Oh yeah,
like he's IRA sympathizer.
Oh yeah, no. I mean that's like that book is marked,
which I'm not for the record.
Yeah,
I don't give a fuck about those people.
Yeah. Well, it's subversive material. In England, it would be considered subversive material, yes. Or the better way to express it is that you are not aligned with the militant cause in Ireland, would be the better way to express it rather than I don't care about those people, because I'm sure you have humanitarian concern for the plight of the Irish people historically. But
of course.
Yes, thank you. And
that goes without saying. I didn't.
Yeah.
Just the specific, I'm talking like the deep cuts of the IRA, like they can do whatever they got to do. I have nothing.
Yeah, it's
to say about that.
And just so people understand, just a debriefing there, because most people are too young to remember the Troubles. Anybody listening to us, very few people are old enough to remember the Troubles in Ireland. And but at that time, Ireland was considered a unique tragedy in the Western world, because the Western world thought that it had outgrown, quote unquote, or overcome religious conflict. And it is at its base a religious conflict between Protestants and Catholics that was just how would I say it? It was just an ongoing low-intensity level conflict, an armed conflict in Northern Ireland that was... That was a human tragedy, but it became complicated or exacerbated by the fact that in order to get funding, the Irish revolutionaries had to turn towards the Greater Soviet Union. So they were getting communist funding, and ultimately a lot of ideological cadres So if you look it up on YouTube, you can find the East German army singing Irish songs in solidarity with the Irish Republican Army. So that's these things did happen, and they're very bizarre. But you have basically the Catholics in Northern Ireland, funded by the communists, that it then resulted in, I think, ultimately, a secularization of Ireland over the years that has been unnoticed by many people. Ireland as a whole has become quite secular. So, but especially the Republic of Ireland, meaning Southern Ireland, or the majority of Ireland as opposed to Northern Ireland, they're like, they had a gay president, for God's sake. So, or prime minister, or whatever the fuck they call him. But it's at the point where they've completely changed. They're not like
I think as a republic, he may be a president. Let me check.
Thank you. Our man Brendan will follow up with that. But he forced Joe Biden, who was once infamously homophobic. He forced Joe Biden to meet and shake hands with his gay husband back when he was still president. I think he was, voted out shortly after that.
Yeah, he is a president.
Oh, he's still the president. He's still the current president.
The 9th president.
Of Ireland. Jesus Christ. And so, by the way, wonderful photograph of the Irish Republican Army girl firing off a fully automatic weapon in her skirts, provided by T. Tank Barry in our text box.
Belfast was a war zone. I mean, from the 70s. That's what messed up people, or I guess I shouldn't say messed up. That's what created people like Michael Sre-ten-ye and these types. He's so cynical because he had to grow up in that. So it's like, that's why he became into the occult and all that stuff.
Yeah, that was his escape. And just so everybody knows, I'm very ambivalent about Michael Sre-ten-ye, if not negative. Not overtly. I wouldn't say I was overwhelmingly negative about him, because I really don't pay much attention to him. All I know is that I don't buy into his shtick. And half the time, most people don't even understand what the fuck he's saying. They just love the sound of his voice because he's got this delightful Irish brogue, and so they just buy into any shit he says.
Yeah, he's got the northern accent.
Thank you. Yeah, but a lot of what he says is just pure shit. I mean, I can tell you that much. Enough of it where it turns me off. And so, yes, another photograph from John Doe, who is T. Tank Barry of the Troubles in Ireland. But again, just to drive the point home, when the Troubles began to become quiescent, when they basically stalled, it was due to entry into the European Union of Ireland and Britain both. At that point, Britain and Ireland were both part of the European Union. All of that trouble is starting up again now that with Brexit, because now all kinds of people are trying to escape England and through Northern Ireland. And it's not just Irish people, it's British people are trying to escape England through Northern Ireland, trying to cross those lines into Ireland to get back into fucking Europe so they can be European again. So understand there's a whole new set of trouble starting there. But beyond that, what then made Ireland seem at that time to simmer down and become more quiescent or peaceful was, aside from both of them entering European Union, was the fact that the war in the Balkans started, and that was a religious conflict as well. That was Muslims and Christian Orthodox and Catholics all fighting each other in the Balkans. And then finally people stopped paying attention to Ireland and turned all their attention towards the Balkans. Because at that point, European Union, and now then the Balkans. Now, of course, with Britain out of the European Union and the war in Ukraine, everything's going back to World War II style. Everything's powder keg.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but okay, so I had to get that out of the way. That's the historian.
I appreciate that. That's nice.
Thank you. Love this picture of this. I'm going to download this lovely girl with the lovely girls with the firearms in Ireland. So that's from T. Tank Barry. Thank you for sharing those. If you can share those in the chat, do so as well. But I don't think they can share in the chat. I don't think these photographs can share in the chat.
Yeah. And I can't say definitively, but most likely those girls were killed by the British Army.
It could have been
high chance. Yeah,
yes, high chance. The British Army was terrible about that, and it was. But at any rate, what goes around comes around, and they'll be facing that in Britain soon enough.
Are those M16s?
Yeah, these were M16s. I did not want to say that. What the girl
commies didn't give them fucking AKs? That's wrong.
It's absolutely
Cheap-ass
bizarre.
Russians.
It's absolutely bizarre. It is absolutely bizarre. But I noticed that the girl who's firing in the black and white photograph, I don't know what she's holding because the photograph is so pixelated. It's pixelated. Yeah,
it kind of looks like an M16.
It does. But if I remember, historically, I think it was an M16, even though it had a very small mag. But then the two girls are definitely holding M16s, and the other thing, it's like where they got them from is beyond me. I would assume that from some Irish depot or something, but the communists were supplying money more than anything else. It was really weird. They weren't necessarily supplying weapons very much, but I'm sure they got the share of them eventually. It would have to have done so. But they were so good at just improvising so much already. I don't think they needed too much practical help from the Russians. But the logistics were bad. The logistics were bad because, how would the Russians deliver it? They had to have Irish people, which wasn't too difficult. The Irish people had to rendezvous with them basically in Europe, as opposed to more than anything else when it came to the smuggling. It's not like Russian submarines could just emerge or airdrop like they could in other places. But Russia's always been bad outside of its boundaries. It's been that's why Russia couldn't really maintain an empire. They really were not good at logistics in the extreme. So all that being said, we are also joined by Holly Kiefer. So Holly, all this talk about the past, any memories you'd care to share in that regard? Certainly, it must bring up some memories with yourself.
Well, I missed most of it. I just tuned in.
Okay, that's fine.
Getting off work, so give me the bare bones.
Oh, well, Brendan, Holly, Aristides?
We were speaking about, I brought up the artist Jim Fitzpatrick because I had rescued this portfolio from a local person. And the art portfolio. So this is like an Irish revolutionary artist, but my interest lies within his depictions of the mythology of Ireland, mainly. Yeah. Nothing to do with his politics or whatever. Right. But Doug went into the troubles a bit about Northern Ireland, which was Britain essentially still, owned by the British, and then you have Southern Ireland, which is now the Republic of Ireland. And we just went into the bit of the history of that, such as the Troubles and all. Yeah.
Catholics against Protestants.
Initially. Go on.
Yeah, and maybe if you don't know who Jim Fitzpatrick is, and a lot of people don't for some reason, because he's very hardcore Irish and the Brits don't advertise him.
Right.
But he was the guy that did the Che Guevara, the famous Che Guevara that all those commie high schoolers had in their, on their freaking bedroom walls. Yeah, he was the guy who made that.
Which I always thought was Andy Warhol did it because of its style. Honestly, because of its style and its graphic appearance, I always thought Andy Warhol did that, but go on.
Yeah, no.
I always figured somebody South American did it.
No,
it was this guy because he was like what Doug described. Yeah. They were sympathizing with the revolutionaries in Cuba. Yeah. Because of what the other people had done, and then the Russians were the only ones helping them, so it makes sense in context.
That's right. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, the Irish people were so badly propagandized against throughout that conflict by the Americans. The Americans viewed them as just as basically a Soviet satellite. They basically viewed Ireland as a Soviet satellite for years. Throughout the Cold War, and Irish people were depicted as villains and terrorists throughout all of America's comic books and popular.
Well, they still are.
Yeah. Go on.
You have the James Bond villain, the little assassin. They even made fun of it in Austin Powers. The assassin was
the
Irish.
Scottish guy. They made him Scottish. What, the fat guy? The fat guy was Scottish.
No, he was Scottish.
Okay,
but there was
Irish guy.
One of the films that showed the Irish guy. And he's like, "You stole me Lucky Charms," and shit. But he was the assassin. But I think it was based off of a Bond villain. There was probably one of the early Bonds had the Irish guy is the evil assassin.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
Yes. And so pathetic. Anyhow,
sneaky Irishman.
Yeah, it was always like that. They were always portrayed as that, like all Irish people are devils. But, that went on even long before the Troubles. But it was...
oh, definitely.
That's like just part of British dominance of the language, and the language-speaking medium, English-speaking medium of America. So, so what does that bring to your mind?
There's a history of it.
Yeah, there's a whole history in it, but the fact that it was just so perennial and pervasive and just would not die down in the 21st century, we should all look back on that with horror and just say, how is this possible? Just because they're white, that way they could get away with it without looking racist. They could make basically Irish people were
part of it.
Yeah, they were the white niggers of the Cold War as far as Americans were concerned in their media. It was disgusting. But then beyond that, it was what else was it? It was the there's other examples I can think of, but at the moment, that's frustrating enough. And but so Holly, what does that bring to your mind? I'm certain it must bring many things to your mind.
It does. Growing up on the East Coast, they were a strong factor.
Yeah.
And they all became cops, which was considered an underclass of society.
Yeah. Blue collar, labor that was
white trash.
Yeah, blue collar mafia. Go on. Yeah.
Famous drunks.
Yes.
Drunk.
The pub life.
But then.
Yes, go on.
Yeah.
Pubs had their own
Patrick's
newspapers.
Day.
Pubs had their own newsletters.
But then, St. Patrick's Day is the next biggest thing to Christmas.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So everybody, except the Italians, they weren't touching that.
Yes.
And they competed for those underclass roles so
Yes.
strongly.
Yeah.
But I'm not familiar with his art. I'll have to look into that.
Well, everyone is in the sense of that Che Guevara poster.
Yes.
But yeah.
You've been
Everyone.
exposed
But other
to
than
it.
that,
Yeah.
you've been exposed to it, but his like mythological stuff is way different. It's got like Celtic lace work and it's really stunning kind of Art Nouveau mixed with Celtic illuminated kind of manuscript. It's all it's very beautiful. I think he's one of my favorite artists, but if I say that too many times, I won't be able to go to England. So it's purely art related. It's not visual. It's
aesthetic.
Visual.
Say it's purely aesthetic. Yes.
It's aesthetic, not ideological.
Yes.
Because he'll portray battles where the entire host of Anglo-Saxon and Scots and Welsh, when they went to Ireland, there's a big battle called the Battle of Moria, and the Irish kicked their asses and stuff. So he makes it look all grand, and this was a historical battle in the Celtic times where the Celtic peoples actually destroyed this armada of Anglo-Saxon and those northern factions. So.
Did they get into it with the Romans?
Yeah, any invader was kept out by the Celtic, which also the early Celts like the Milesians and stuff were also actually invaders. The Druids were the native population.
And were the Picts Irish?
The Picts were the natives of Scotland.
Of Scotland. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why you hear the term. Yeah, go on, honey.
Go ahead.
No, go on,
That's
Holly.
a strange group historically, I understand.
Yes.
A lot of mystery.
Yes.
And I met a guy part Pictish in England once, and he had amazing talents as an artist, and was a strange, almost otherworldly kind of guy. So I always wondered if it was the Pictish.
Yeah, the Celtic blood codes and stuff are very Lemurian, Atlantean. They have this ancient connection to nature, this earth plane. So that's why they try to wipe them out, just like any indigenous. So.
I always thought of the Druids as English, not Irish.
So the Druids were on the continent, but the Druidic culture was worldwide. The Aryans.
Oh.
So those are the same group. and it stretched all the way to India. It's like the same Vedic root. We're the Druids. Yeah.
Whoa, never heard that.
So that's why you have like, even in place names, it gives it away, such as like Ireland, which is Aryaland. You have Iran, Aryaland. You have places in India as well. With place names. I'm trying to remember the names, but they have the root of them means Druid or Aryan.
Huh.
So, yeah. So this is a worldwide culture.
Blue-eyed. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Shem-Suhor, they also went to Egypt. That was like the disciples of Horus. They were these blonde-haired, fair people, redheads that built the pyramids. Like Ramses was one of their descendants and all that. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a hidden history. There's a big hidden history.
And explain to Holly and our listeners the roots of the red-haired, green-eyed Celts that are so specifically, they were persecuted by our American medical industrial complex in particular, which refused for generations to attend to their anesthetic needs, which are orders of magnitude greater than those of any other race because of their basic immunity to anesthetics, which put them at risk for surgery and they would often die in surgery for generations because of their vulnerability in that area, which the medical industrial complex refused to recognize because of their own reverse racism, a reverse discrimination, saying it would be racist to recognize white people's vulnerabilities of a certain white ethnic group to medical collateral damage. So
and thanks to your people like you exposing it,
thank you.
It's starting to change.
Thank
They
you.
say there are like genetic limitations.
Thank you. Yes.
To medicine.
I don't think they know it yet.
Thank you, honey. Thank you.
In the medical industry, but I'm hoping they do.
Oh, they know it.
As Brendan says.
They know it.
They know it, but they're only
Right.
slowly beginning. Yeah, they're only slowly beginning to acknowledge it in a manner of altering their methods of medical treatment.
So basically, if you have red hair or in your family or manifesting as a phenotype in yourself, you have to alert the anesthesiologist. And if they say, I know, it's better that they already knew and they feel annoyed than you dying on the table.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
So.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And certainly parents need to advocate for their children if their children are red-haired, green-eyed, and freckled in particular. So explain that, the freckles, the red hair, and the green eyes. It's all part of a very specific Celtic bloodline. You can take it from there, Brendan.
Oh yeah, so that specific group is also worldwide, but this was the ancient Nordic people of the north. So these are like magic bloodlines that were filtered through the other European tribes and races, and they manifest in France mostly, and parts of Ireland, some in England, but not as much. This is what people have actually. There's like still a war against these people because they were the ancient like Atlantean and Lemurian sons of the serpent, the pureblood version of them. They were very tall warriors, think Conan the Barbarian style people that were very, Lu and these descendants of the Tuatha De Danann, these ancient races of Ireland and England. So these people, even to the point where when I was growing up, it used to be people would make fun of gingers. They would say, "Oh, gingers have no soul," or, they're all weird and shit.
Oh, don't forget, red-haired women were targeted as witches and burned at the stake just for the sake of their being.
Yeah. So if you think of a witchy person, she would look like that, thin, tall, with a hooked nose and the red hair and all that. So that was all deliberately done to target this group of magic races that were manifest here. And green eyes is literally the rarest eye color, other than purple.
Yeah, I was about to say, which is not even acknowledged as real, unfortunately. But
of the acknowledged eye colors, green is the rarest. It's something like 1 or 2%, if that.
Yes.
Well, and something is in the back of my mind about a snake cult associated with that, with Druidism. Yeah, and that's the truth. Okay, because I don't have any details.
Yeah, that is, of course. So that's why, St. Patrick is shown as You know,
Of
what's he famous
course.
for? Banishing the serpents. But there are no
Defeating the
snakes.
snake.
There are no snakes really in Ireland or England very much. Like,
That's right.
so so when they're saying that in the Bible or in the the Catholic kind of mythos of the saint banishing the serpent, the serpents were the druid, the people of the serpent, and serpent just means
Right.
knowledge.
Got
Like the
it.
people with their kundalini awakened, and they were like living in the forest naturally and all that.
Yes, and match that in with the note in tonight's show. If people extend the text that's underneath tonight's transmission, I want to draw everyone's attention. I'm already getting questions, of course, about the image that's the photograph embedded in thumbnail of live stream. There is explanatory text below the image. If you open the text, you'll see that I mentioned that even Buddha was descended from the Naga lineage, the super serpents.
Yes.
And that's why that manifests in my own eyes at various times when we're able to draw it out as we did for that photograph. So you can explain to them the connection of the Druids with the Naga lineage, Brendan. Yes, through Asian India, Aryan India.
Oh yeah, definitely. So these bloodlines, as Douglas has said, are connected with the Atlantean/Lemurian. So in the southern part of the world, near Asian India, there was a continent called Kumari-Kandam, which is this large continent that connected like Indonesia, Australia, India, Sri Lanka at one point before it sank below the waves due to the War of the Gods in, pre-Diluvian times and all that. And these beings were heavily involved in human destinies and bloodlines. So it was ran originally by the snake people, the Nyaga, or the different races of snake beings, serpentine, what we would call reptilians, quote unquote, but they're actually these enlightened beings that had their own culture on the surface. But through the War of the Gods and the Mahabharata and the last like 5,000-10,000 years, they were actually delegated their own realm, according to the Vedic times. They were delegated their own realm in the underland called Atal-lok, and all the way down to Patal and stuff like that. So they were given their own kingdom because of all the war and strife that, has happened on our plane. So that's why, like, in the medieval times, people were still going out and like hunting them and stuff, and that's where you get like the dragon hunters and all that. So divine, like, because they were actually, of high, cosmic lineage, they were given refuge. So by divine. So, like, there's a story of Krishna and stuff where he actually helps, even though he kills like some of the like Kali Nag and stuff. There's like these enlightened Nagas that actually bow to divine, and so they were given leniency, of course, because they don't disrupt the cosmic harmony like the other beings did, which is why Atlantis was destroyed. So.
Thank you. Very beautiful, very in depth, and of course, this is why it's so important that we have these roundtables. And what else does that bring to mind? Heather, Holly, any questions? Aristides? Certainly you must have some that all this brings to mind.
Well, you can sure see the connection between the serpent and the dragon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, certainly. Yeah, I mean, we're moving from the year of the dragon into the year of the serpent, so there's not much change, really, in a sense. But
yes.
Yeah, change enough. But
dragon is power, serpent is wisdom, because it sheds.
But there would be maybe some biological similarity.
Some.
Are dragons a form of serpent?
Yeah.
Is what I'm thinking, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like there's lizards that look just like snakes, like glass lizards, but they're native to Europe,
And
but they're
legless
not really
lizards, we have those here.
Yes.
They're black.
That's right. Yeah, they can be. Yes. Probably the species most common to the area that you're referencing, they are, but they're different colors in other countries or other regions. Yeah. And
I think there's even a white one, like an albino looking one.
Yeah, because they live underground so much. Yes.
Yeah.
And but
say the artist's name again.
Yes.
James.
Jim Fitzpatrick. Jim Fitzpatrick.
Jim Fitzpatrick.
Can't get
So
more Irish
he
than
got
that.
famous,
Go
right?
on.
Super Irish. Yeah. So he got very famous in the 70s because of the Book of Conquest that he illustrated, which was Irish legends. And then also he in the late 70s, 80s, he did like album covers for bands like Thin Lizzy, these kind of like metal bands. So it got really popular in that time. But he's pretty much fell off because there's no point being politically active in Ireland anymore. Like Doug was saying, they're very like, you know, they're not exactly connected to their Celtic roots anymore. They're more kind of what was the term you used?
Well, let's
They're
put it
basically
let's put it this way. They're no longer
globalists.
They're no longer as connected to their Catholic roots. Let's put it that way. So
that's for sure.
Yeah. So let's put it this way.
Secular.
Yeah,
That's
I would say that it's there's a pride in Irish culture that has prompted them. In all credit to them.
In the county level, but not the governmental is what I'm saying. Let me clarify.
Yeah, educationally at least, they're trying to preserve the Irish language. So that's very important.
True.
Yeah, so they're trying to preserve the Irish language, Gaelic. And so that is very important. And of course obviously I'm sympathetic to the Irish people because of my legal father, the man who raised and guided me with his background. And he took on the Irish mantle more than the rest of his family did because they were all desperately trying to, how would you say, assimilate, just basically assimilate. And he maintained his Irishness by being a sailor and being overseas. He was able to maintain it much better than the rest of his family, which you could easily mistake for any white Anglo-Saxon Protestants when I visited them after my father's death. And certainly even the few times they visited us, as my parents were older in San Francisco. But as I said, my connections have never been close with the Dietrich family, and I owe them nothing because they've never helped with anything. But all of that being said, what little minor help they provided at the time of my parents' death, it doesn't even count as far as I'm concerned. There's no balance of the ledger there. But all such being said, I am sympathetic to the Irish people because of the man who raised and guided me, and as a result, I will say that they basically what happened was, and I said this before you arrived, Holly, was that it took the British and the Irish both joining the European Union to calm down the Troubles, and when they both became Europeans at that time, both the Irish and the British. The Troubles in Northern Ireland really began to calm down because they no longer had trade barriers. And because they no longer had trade barriers and they were all part of Europe, then everything really became copacetic. And also you had the conflicts, other religious conflicts, because originally it was a religious conflict between Catholics and Protestants that became a capitalist communist conflict as the Irish Republican Army needed sponsorship, and they got the sponsorship from the Greater Soviet Union. And because the Greater Soviet Union was supplying them, they became the villain in American eyes, in American media, whether it was comic books or various other modes of popular culture. Irish people were constantly portrayed as terrorists. And so when all of that went quiescent, at least that came to a halt, and there was the added advantage that then Ireland really boomed in prosperity and became one of the fastest growing and wealthiest economies in Europe because they spoke perfect English and they were absolutely cheap labor. And so because they were working in offices for like investment services and software services, Ireland began to boom with all these office buildings. But as they went through the Cold War with the kind of help they got from the communists,
and they became a tax haven for the software companies.
Yeah,
I know you mentioned it, but
that's why
I'm
sorry.
Oh, Aristides, go on. Yeah, Aristides.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I've never heard an Irish person speak proper English.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. No. That's fine.
And I'm not saying it's not adorable, but no. I'm just saying. You could tell. It's different.
Yeah,
it's a joke. No, nothing against Irish people. I've got. They say everybody's got some in them. They got around. I think that's true for me too. So.
Well, they all have some in them on St. Patrick's Day. generally on St. Patrick's Day, then yeah, all kinds of people claim to be Irish on that day. Yes,
No.
yeah.
Well, I mean, actually, though.
Yeah, no, got it. Yeah, got it.
It's a joke.
Yeah, no, got
They
it.
don't have to speak. They don't have to speak proper English, right? Fuck
Yeah,
English anyway.
yeah,
Right?
no, I get it. I totally get it. No, I appreciate the joke. No, that's fine. I'd
rather hear Irish people speaking it than other
yes,
people's.
Right.
yeah, it's more poetic.
When I call for help on my phone, and they're
Oh
like,
God!
"Can't
Oh God!
call."
It would be infinitely easier if only every phone call we
like
made.
I had to drop
Yeah.
AT&T and T-Mobile because
Thank you.
they were just so bad. Like customer service was like so bad.
It's unworkable. It's unworkable. It's
unworkable.
If only every phone service we were calling for aid for our computers, our telephones. Yeah, if only they were all banks of Irish speakers.
I wish it was.
Yeah. Oh my fucking God, Irish English speakers. I mean to say. But
Yes.
but the no, we get all kinds of people primarily from either South Asia or the Philippines, and in either case, it's like. You may as well give up. I mean, you can't understand half of what they're saying, if that much. No, it's awful. And I've gone into this rave before, and I can go into it again in the future. But so my point to Holly was that once the communists got involved, they ideologically really did a number on Irish people in general, and the entire culture changed, and they became much more of a secular culture. And as a result, they really turned against the church. I mean, started suing the church for crimes conducted in the past. And it's not that this is...
Big crimes.
Yes, yeah, it's not that this is
Big crimes.
something that should not have happened. But they're not... Before, you would say Irish Catholic like it was a requisite. Like, you would use that term, Irish Catholic, as if it were mandatory, because it was. But those days are gone. Yeah, those days are gone. So they're very secular to the point where they elected a gay president who's still president, and has literally a guy with a husband, and then they aside from that, I could go on a bit further from that, but what more do you need to know? It's just that they've really changed. So, but I think that they're much more proud of their Celtic roots in the pagan sense these days than you would say in the Catholic sense. That's what I would say. So it's not that they've gone communist.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, they're not communists. They're
I
just
totally believe that.
Yeah.
There's a big resurgence.
No, and
in interest.
and I think that was a factor, right? Like 1991 and all that. So
yeah,
it's like there's no point in being ideological if they won't give you money.
Yes. Oh fuck yeah. You mean when the Soviet Union collapsed? Yeah, then all of that.
That they really, like, after that I didn't see anything. You know.
Right. And
now Sinn Féin is just like another party, getting money from England and shit. They don't care.
Oh yeah, yes, that's right. And I want people to know.
Pretty amazing the party survived.
Yeah, it's amazing how it adapted. Yeah. Well, that's like the Palestinian Liberation Organization getting involved in the peace talks with Clinton, right? I mean, who else are you going to talk to? I mean, that was it. But T. Tank Berry just sent us an awful photo that's quite real, quite historical, of Irish slaves being shipped to America. So, yes, Celtic people were enslaved in the United States of America. Don't forget, as far as the Anglo-Saxons were concerned, these were just white niggers. So, horrible, horrible past that America has never contended with, and I doubt ever will until there is a collapse, which they're hastening American collapse, and by that point, the culture can be dealt with, and you can finally develop an actual culture in America. But right now, you can't have one because they're in denial of all of their past. And their past is one of slavery, extermination, and just plain horror. But such having been said, what was the other thing I was going to bring up concerning Ireland while we were on the subject? Oh, yes. Let me see if I can look up something from my notes here from back in the days of the Department of Defense. And just so that we can, here we are. When it came to I don't know if this is exactly what I'm trying to source. Obviously, it's not, so I'll try and look up some of my own notes. And but I do want people to know that America had a secret space program that was lasted throughout the Cold War, And I've gone into this in great detail. Matter of fact, one of the authors that I had cooperated with wrote a short story about that secret space program, which was anthologized. I don't even remember the title, but it was anthologized in a work called Space Eldritch. And so it was based on everything that I had shared with him, elements of what I had shared with him concerning the secret space program. And I don't know if the main character was Irish. It would have been in keeping because he was quite the fan of, what was his name again, who wrote the Conan novels? Howard, Robert Irvin Howard. And he was a big fan of him. So if he were following Robert Howard's tradition, all of Robert Howard's characters were Celtic, generally speaking, except maybe one, which was the Puritan Solomon Kane. But when it came to the rest, he was quite enamored of his background, Robert Howard, and he would make Celtic heroes. And I don't know if that was incorporated into the short story, but I certainly told him about the fact that there were Irishmen that were ultimately integrated through their military experience into the secret space program, which was known as Project Odysseus, and that one of them had landed on the third moon of Earth, which is CROOKE. It's named after the Irish, an ancient Irish god. And so CROOKE is spelled like very Celtic. You can't pronounce it the way it's spelled. It's CRUITHNE. So people can actually look this up. And CROOKE is acknowledged, but no one ever speaks about it. But CROOKE is a very strategic piece of real estate in space. CRUITHNE. It's literally when you land on CROOKE, you have an equidistant perspective of Earth and the moon. In other words, it's balanced in orbit between the Earth and the moon, and therefore you can launch rockets or missiles at either the Earth or the moon simultaneously, or potentially intercept them, because you would see the rockets or the missiles approaching Earth from the moon, or vice versa. And if you had a laser-directed weapon, then the laser weapon could beam and fry the missile's brains or circuitry en route to the other world, if you have it mounted on CROOKE. So CROOKE is one of the most valuable pieces of real estate in the universe, and it's kept very, very secret. You can look it up and find that it exists, but no one will acknowledge its existence. In other words, if you say, is CROOKE the third moon of Earth? There's other moons that you don't know about either. But basically, you could say, is CROOKE another moon of Earth? And all they're going to say is no, and you'll find these weird, ridiculous explanations that are obviously obfuscations, where they'll say, well, it's in a bizarre orbital pattern, so we don't count it as a moon, but it's permanent. It's not transitional. It's fixed. So even though it's orbiting and therefore it's not stationary, it is definitely fixed, meaning that it's a permanent part of our system. Holy shit, where did T-Tank Berry found this, which is CROOKE, and it looks like a wonderful album cover. So this could, your Irish nationalist artist ought to be getting into this. There we go. Thank you for that, T-Tank Berry. And one of these days I'll explain more about CROOKE, but it represents, if anything, a kind of positive racism. Astrologically, if you look up the astrology of CROOKE, CROOKE astrologically represents racial identity, is what it represents. So, how's that for throwing people off with various little bits of obscure trivia? I could go on about CROOKE for hours, and perhaps we'll do so later. But in the meantime, I'll try and find my old notes from back in the days when I was dealing with this. And whenever I shared such things with the author who wrote that short story, which he dedicated to myself, inside of that book it was anthologized in Space Eldritch. Of course, like so many other people, all they took was being approached by the enemy, and they turned. And but then again, of all the people who would turn, he was the only one who had a reason. I slept with his wife. So
You bastard.
Well, come on. He was short. He looked like Mini-Me from Dr. Evil, okay? Poor son of a bitch. And he lived with his wife and 3 kids in a fucking trailer, all right? So it's not like he was doing much for her. And so she eventually left.
Was he the one that was cooking meth on the side or bath salts?
No, believe it or not. No. No, she was.
Okay, that was somebody else, though.
No, her tragedy was that he was Mormon. And all the Mormon doctors just put her on every prescription drug imaginable. So just to keep her, she had 3 pregnancies and each one almost killed her. In other words, by the time they got to the 3rd pregnancy, they had to rip her womb out because they said, we got to make sure you don't even have a womb because, if you get pregnant at all, it's going to kill you. It's not just the delivery that would have killed her. Another pregnancy would have killed her. So they had to rip her womb out. But a lot of this was due to the damage that had been done to her system by, the first time they took her to doctors, the Mormon doctors just said, put the bitch on antidepressants because, that's what they do. Put every Mormon bitch on antidepressants so that they can, behave, like a good Mormon wife and just keep squeezing out kids. And, and they forced her to go through 3 of those procedures. So,
that explains a lot.
Yeah, it's like, that's why do you think she would sleep with me? Of course she'd, cheat on him. I mean, who wouldn't after going through that, raising 3 kids in a trailer and, it's so there you go with that.
Sure.
Of course, yeah. But it was our man Brendan looked up his website and saw that he was talking about voices in his head. Remember, Brendan? You looked up his website and he was saying,
"Oh, you're talking about David J. West?"
Yes.
Oh my God! Yeah, that was awful. Yeah. Okay. So fair game. Now that I know who it is. Okay.
I thought he had a side gig cooking bath salts.
Oh, that's right. That was him.
He might as well have.
Yeah, no, that's him. It
Right.
was him. Though, but by the way, in all fairness, he took deep offense at that. And he was saying that
he doesn't want to get excommunicated.
Yeah.
Because Mormon, they like help you out. They're on welfare, basically.
Yeah, yes, that's right. He was on welfare. Then he married some rich white chick who was also Mormon, but she was living in Los Angeles, moved into his home that he inherited. And once he moved into the home that he inherited from his family, he was in an 18-room mansion. He moved into an 18-room mansion. There you go. And he had 3 kids, and she had 6 at least. They needed those rooms. Yeah. But at any rate, so his life had gone I don't know why he started attacking me just because I had slept with his wife, because he wound up marrying another one, and it looked like everything. What the fuck is he bitching about? It's like,
sounds like it worked out for him.
Yeah, no shit. But no, then he starts attacking me on behalf of the Edomites. And but at any rate, he claimed that the RY:I:N Dead never existed, even though I have an ISBN number for it. But he was fired from the project by Lori and Ann Fenton 2 years before it was fucking published. So whatever the fuck he's saying is out of this world. I mean, it shows how insane this idiot is. But,
Wasn't he trying to steal your material?
Oh, that was it. No, you're absolutely right. That's because at that point, he thought that he could, since he had all the notes, he felt he could just publish it. And that was good point. Your point's well taken. And you know why? He waited till after his wife died because he knew she would have testified against him. That was it. That's what happened. His wife had died. Then he figured, she's not alive to testify against me because she knew the whole story. And so then he tried to claim the book had never been published so that he could publish the notes. That's what told me to tell Peter Moon to publish the book so that he couldn't get away with it. But then Peter Moon published only half the book, because he's a fucking Edomite and ultimately claimed he was on the side of the enemy. So, I'm always dealing with just enemy that are assigned to me to do nothing else than. The only one that was not that and just turned for any legitimate reason would have been David J. West, but, it's not like he didn't have it coming. But at any rate, all that being said, the bath salts was actually...
The last time we brought him up, I remember, if you went back in the day, his Facebook was just him with, a kid, and it was just weird.
It was his daughter who he had he had left his wife Because she kicked him out of the 18-room house because she found him fucking his daughter.
Oh.
That was...
Yeah. And it's not like I'm being unfair, like someone, just takes a picture with their kid. No, these were like creepy ass shit photos.
Yeah. Tell him. Every photo was just, he was rubbing her ass and everything else.
Yeah, it was weird.
Oh, boy.
It was just the two of them. It was really odd.
Yeah.
It was like to the point where it was too much. It was there's no unexplainable.
The way to express it is that it was a monofocal, obsessive, compulsive upload of photograph after photograph of his daughter in what were very compromising positions, where her face would display expressions that did not that were not wholesome. In other words, there were expressions that looked like she was in sexual ecstasy, as if she were being diddled, but you couldn't see the lower part of her body, etc. Photographs such as this. That ultimately, I know he was reported for incest. I know that for a fact. And by the way, Heather says, I thought the court doesn't allow a spouse to testify against their spouse. Well, how would that work if the woman's being beaten? No, Heather, that's what your grandfather told you. Your grandfather.
Yeah, and even if that's true, you would just get a divorce. The lawyer would just help you get a divorce. It's not a big deal.
Yes.
Oh, I thought maybe in another kind of court case, like a person is not allowed to testify against their spouse.
Well, they were separated.
Or they can't make them. They can't make them.
Yeah, well,
Or they can't make you. You can if you want to.
Yes, there we are.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
My recollection.
Thank you. Besides, at that point, believe me, honey, I'm speaking to both of you here with that term, Holly and Heather. Believe me, honeys, she wanted to at that point.
Yeah.
She was separated from him, let's just say she had found a better dick in myself, and after that was no longer going back. And so
was that the one that died?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we were all speculating that he killed her because his response to it was so damning. His response to it was to put up a picture of her and just say, hey, this is kind of surreal. My wife just died. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, so you remember that, Brendan? You saw that?
Yeah. We went over the whole thing, and it was all, in my opinion, definitely true.
Yeah.
The whole shebang.
Thank you.
It's just kind of like,
yeah.
It's too odd of us.
Thank you. By the way, T-Tank Barry found a good trivia meme that points out Earth has a second moon called CROOKE, which follows a synchronized orbit with Earth. So there we have that. Interesting facts, a little trivia he found. So you find little shit like that, but you never find any details on it. You never ever, and no one ever asks, why don't we know anything about it? But all such being said, it was found when an Irish astronaut who has never been publicly acknowledged planted the American flag on CROOKE and claimed the strategic high ground over the Greater Soviet Union, one of many factors that led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union could never counteract that. That was, at that point, the Americans had the ultimate high ground, at least for a while. But just to clarify the bath salts issue, Holly, so what happened was David J. West had for a period of time worked with a bunch of Pakistani motherfuckers who, as he said, they come to Germany and they get their engineering degrees or chemistry degrees, and they use these just to build improvised explosive devices all over the rest of the world and kill people. But when they're not doing that, they come to
Pakistan has the highest level of organic chemists.
Thank you.
That's who makes all the drugs that come into our country. So
thank you. And so he said he was working with a bunch of them, and they were making these artificial drugs, synthetic drugs that were synthetic THC and synthetic LSD, and these were disguised as incense papers. In other words, there's an artificial incense which is like paper. That's like little strips of paper that theoretically you burn and you add the aroma to your home. But oftentimes this is a disguise for tabs of acid or tabs of chemical,
research chemicals.
THC, research chemicals, which people use to get high. And so it may as well be bath salts. but he was offended when I said it was
It's
bath
definitely
salts.
worse than LSD.
Yeah,
Like,
but
and LSD in the sense that LSD would be good for the brain,
right.
and these things were straight up frying people out.
Thank you. So when it comes to that, that's what he was helping doing. But the idiocy comes with his taking offense at being accused of manufacturing the bath salts, because the bath salts later became involved. But he was like saying, oh, he was insisting that they had to wear hazmat suits to work with what they had already, or at least gloves and gas masks. But by the
in
time
the early days, it was basically called they called it K2. It was like spice. It was called spice.
Thank you.
That was the first one.
That's what he was
Debbie
making.
Moore did.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what he was making. But he insisted, by the time they got to making the bath salts, you had to wear a full hazmat suit, and they couldn't find one his size because he's a midget, basically. And so that's what his.
So they were selling that shit in the early to mid 2000s, and then a few people started going bonkers on the bath salts and killing people and ripping people's faces off. So they had
eating
to,
them,
regulate.
eating them off. Yeah.
Literally
eating
it's
people.
$2 an ounce at every bodega.
Yeah. Back
Anyway, Santa Cruz to Asbury. Yep, everyone, everywhere.
So just a cheap high.
It was huge.
So I found it. I found my old notes. Let me do a. Here we are. Going to start sharing. Here, can you guys see the cursor moving? Heather, Holly, Aristides, Brendan, can you see the cursor moving?
Sure can.
Okay.
Let me see that.
Okay. Soon as you're able to share a screen, honey, and don't forget.
Yeah.
Okay, good. At some point, don't forget to analyze or acknowledge the side text provided by others in the text box. And we're going to go now to the how do I do this? Do I think I do it this way? No, that doesn't do it. So I guess what I got to do is basically take this down. So I found old notes in, of course, the way I list my notes, nobody can find what they're looking for. That prevents anyone who breaks into my system from ever identifying anything that they're looking for. So astrologically, CROOKE. CROOKE is when we go down further and see the list. By the way, can people hear me? I'm just wondering if the audio is still on.
What the hell is this
I
zombie
can hear you.
picture that just popped up?
Zombie picture?
Yeah, it just popped on my screen.
The guy that
and
got
went
attacked
away.
by.
Oh, that's the guy who got.
Bath salt guy.
Oh, that
Bath salt guy.
bath salt guy. Okay, so thank you. And let me see if I
You
can.
gotta give us a heads up, T-Tank.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
That was like a jump scare.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I once put that on Facebook, and some poor bastard wrote to me, I was eating breakfast when I was looking through my Facebook, and now I lost my breakfast. And I was like, oh, God, I felt bad about that. Yeah.
Well, I remember the other one that you made people cry was the monkey hybrid.
Yes.
People were crying about that shit.
Oh, yes.
How could you show me that?
Yes. And yeah, at any rate, going back to the notes. So here we are. The CROOKE. How would we pronounce this in the Gaelic, or Brendan? CROOKE.
I have no idea.
Okay, but I know this is pronounced CROOKE. So the CROOKE were a people of early medieval Ireland. Their name is the Irish equivalent of Sre-ten-ye, an ancient name for Celtic Britons, sometimes used to refer to the Picts. CROOKE was a legendary king, his 7 sons, and the first Celtic tribe that inhabited the British Isles. An ancient myth says that in the beginning of time, there was a legendary king of the Picts, CROOKE. CROOKE comes from the Gaelic word an CROONAIN, or Pict, which would be spelled CRUITHAIN. Naturally.
Oh, that's crazy. So this moon is Pictish.
Yeah, painted people was the son.
Shocking.
Yeah, son of king.
Sorry, go ahead.
No,
CROOKE.
Yeah,
CROOKE.
thank you.
CROOKE.
Yeah, strong or brave is what it means in Gaelic. King. In Gaelic, the word king is spelled with a C, C-I-N-G, but it's pronounced king,
Right.
and it means strong or brave. So considered to be the father of the Picts, CROOKE, the first king of the Picts, reigned for 100 years and he had 7 sons, and their names were Phoebe, Fidak, FOLKLORE, or Fatla, Fortran, I'm probably mispronouncing all of this horribly, Caït, or Cat, they called him Cat because nobody could pronounce the Irish, CAITT, Se, or K, and Surken, or Turken. CROOKE lived about 442 or 476 BC. CROOKE refers to the whole tribe of people because they're all named after the king. Like Adam was the king of his tribe, which is how we got the term Adam man. But one of the earliest
in
Celtic
Arabic,
tribes.
it's still that.
Thank you.
Adami.
Thank you. Yes. So this is one of the earliest Celtic tribes known to have inhabited Ireland and Britain, who appeared in the British Isles between approximately 800 and 500 years before Christ. These people probably migrated from the mainland. They may have been descendants of prehistoric native tribes that inhabited the British Isles since the Stone Age. Or perhaps they were Partholonians, mythical early invaders of Ireland. By the way, I got all this off the Department of Defense records I was ordered to destroy that the moon was named after. Anyhow, the history of the earliest tribes in the British Isles is obscure. The name CROOKE could also be related to the Irish word crún, or cruth, C-R-U-T-H, which means shape or design. Many historians have said that the Picts were the painted people, and it has been suggested that the Picts had a habit of tattooing themselves. They may have decorated and tattooed their faces with bodies and dyes. That's where it became known as shapers or designers. But understand this. Whatever the Picts were using is unknown. No one has ever been able to understand Pictish tattoos. We know they were fluorescent because the Picts glowed in the dark. That's why the Romans who encountered them were so frightened of them. The Picts attacked at night. The Picts could see at night because their tattoos were fluorescent. And it was some kind of organic, non-toxic dye that they injected under their epidermis, which acted as a fluorescent reflector of the moonlight. So under enough moonlight, and some nights without the moon, they were still, they glowed. So no one knows how they did that. No one's been able to repeat their accomplishment. The Irish called the Picts the CROOKE. The Romans called them Picts as a general term that covered many separate tribes. The word most used to describe the culture and people of northwestern Europe, Celtic or Celt, is a modern word that only came into popular usage in the last century. The word comes from a Latin description of a small Spanish tribe that Roman scribes and historians used to create myths about a fictional race they called the Celts. These myths were so successful that in today's world, it's now generally believed that the Celts were every bit as real as the Romans, when in truth, a Celtic race, quote unquote, only existed in fiction. This is what the Americans were trying to claim, and it was the propaganda they had connived with the British in their extermination of their own Celtic minorities. In other words, just as the British had conducted a campaign of genocide against the Celts in Ireland and Scotland and Wales for hundreds of years, the Americans tried to exterminate all of the white Celts in the deep, solid South. That was why the American Civil War between the states was a racial war between the whites, the Anglo-Saxon and the Anglo-Dutch Teutonic North and the Gallo-Celtic South. And the Southern culture is a Celtic culture and a tribal white culture as opposed to the industrialized North. So the Scots and Irish Gaelic culture were associated. See, because I was taking these notes so quickly from the Presidio military base, I didn't have time to write down the parts that they had said, this is the propaganda that we've devised for our genocide of the Celtic people. But I assure you, I remember that much from the records I was taking physical notes of before these were transcribed, ultimately by my son, to the point where they could be digitized. So the Scots and the Irish Gaelic culture we associate with the term today, of course, is very real, albeit it has no connection to those original Roman myths. After the Second World War, with the movements of peoples around Europe, the art and the music of the Scots and Irish appealed to the souls of many nations, and they, most specifically of all Northwestern Europeans, began to be called Celts, even though we know that the Celts were real and descended ultimately from the Aryans that were spoken of by Brendan. Now, the clansfolk of Scotland...
And the Picts.
Yes, and the Picts. Well, that's just Scots. That's just old Scots. That's prehistoric Scots. Yeah. The clans folk...
Up there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
The hill folk.
Thank you. Yeah. The clans...
Okay.
Yeah, the clansfolk of Scotland and Ireland
The
today.
indigenous.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah, white indigenous peoples. That's what Vikings are. If you ever think about Vikings, what is the mystique about Vikings? They're basically white indigenous people. Indigenous whites. That's what they are. So
Yeah, but all over the world, indigenous tribes get persecuted.
Mm-hmm.
So here comes Britain,
Yes.
and Rome, and all, you know.
Oh yeah.
Fuck with them.
Yeah, the colonialists. The colonialists.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so the clansfolk of Scotland and Ireland today prefer to be called by their ancient name of CROOKE. So understand that if you're really in the know and you're really talking to an Irish nationalist today or a Scottish nationalist, they're going to call themselves CROOKE. And this is one of the reasons they hide that goddamn moon, is because that would encourage Scotland's secession from England, not to mention a sense of Irish nationalism in Northern Ireland, which would then unite with the rest of Ireland. So CROOKE is a Gaelic word used by the Gaels themselves that specifically refers to the indigenous peoples of Ireland, Scotland, and Northwest Wales. And this Gaelic word, by definition, incorporates the music, history, myths, legends, gods, and goddesses of the Gaelic peoples, oddly mirroring what the fictional title Celt had been created to do. In other words, we could take the word Celt as kind of like a Latin imposition, an imposition of language by the
Yes.
Roman Empire, but we could take the tribal term as CROOKE. There we are. So
Yes.
CROOKE
Got it.
must be reinstated in place of the more easily recognized Celt, because in their own language, CROOKE is who they were, are, and ever will be. So when it comes to the planet, pronounced Crunya, phoneticized Cruinya, the word comprising but 12 syllables, Cruith and Nye, but the stress being on the first syllable, which contains both the U and E sounds, the name Crugne sourcing from the early Gaelish or Gaelge, Irish word Crún, meaning shape or design. It is thought to relate to the Irish word Crún, meaning form, figure, shape, as in the tattoos. This could possibly refer to the Picts' supposed habit of tattooing themselves. Again, this was a different source. I had to mix all these notes together. Picty painted, or from, that's what they used to call tattoos, picty painted, or pict painting, from their unique stone carvings that are likely to have been painted and highly colored. In other words, for their stones that were painted with their colors were also fluorescent and glowed in the dark. It may also mean people of the wheat. Now, Crúne, son of Kinye, or Kinge, according to an old legend recorded in the Irish Book of WkEND, or WkEND, was the first of the king of the Picts and is supposed to have ruled for 100 years. Astrologically, this is what the Department of Defense was concentrating on due to its occult warfare orientation under Michael Aquino. Astrologically, Crúne indicates a sense of connectedness to ethnic, regional, or racial roots, or to the land or earth, ethnic or racial pride, environmentalism, clinging to core identity, stigma as well, because they're persecuted. So there we are with that. Okay, and then I went on to further notes that they had written on orbital Lagrange colonies, so we can go to that another time. So there we are. And
but it's a big jump that to get the name on that moon.
Yes, imagine that.
Yeah.
You don't even hear about it spoken in astrology. They talk about Lilith all the time. Lilith is on retrograde and shit, but they don't ever say that.
Oh, did you ever hear fucking Peter Moon once ever mention Crúne? He never even knew of its existence.
He doesn't know it exists.
But he would talk all the time about Chiron. He would say,
yeah, Chiron.
Yeah, the wounded healer.
Which is just an asteroid.
Yeah, which is a planetoid. But don't forget, Chiron was the gay centaur who fucked Hercules. That was his teacher, and teacher was fucked.
He was a mage. Yeah, he was a healer and a mage.
Yeah, the wounded healer, as Peter Moon would say, because he wanted to be fucked by Chiron's horse dick. Yeah, that was his big
Yeah, that's
fantasy.
projecting.
Yeah. Oh, so, okay, so back to everyone in
Douglas, what general region of the sky is this moon in?
Brendan?
It's in orbit. It's in orbit.
Yeah.
So it's in the zodiac.
Yeah, and this is
I don't think it's ecliptic.
But what I'd like to find out is,
really?
Brendan, is it possible to find out if Crúne is ever visible by the naked eye? Or Holly, maybe you're a
it would be visible via telescope.
Okay. That would make sense.
Certainly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Since CROOKE can see both the Earth and the Moon, we must also.
But if it was that visible, you'd think people would notice.
Oh, here when I typed it in, it says there are nothing that matches your search, and then the first, I'm not shitting you, the first thing says government.info federal, and it's something in Latin, so they totally suppress it. And I'll screenshot it if you want to see it.
Thank you, please.
Doesn't make sense.
Because by logic, since I know for a fact from the records I destroyed, that the astronaut who landed on CROOKE, the Irishman who named it CROOKE, said that Earth and Moon can both be seen by the naked eye from CROOKE, then we technically should be able, if we know what we're looking for, we should be able to see it from Earth. But, okay,
yeah, but, anybody that does pay attention, if it was all that visible, would,
There's a lot of stuff in the sky that's visible, but
unacknowledged. Thank you. Why don't you ask your friends who helped build that hippie... What was that, honey? It was an observatory. You got your hippie astronomer. They're not even astrologers. They're fucking astronomers. The hippie astronomy observatory. What would you call that place, Holly?
Dang, they silenced her.
Damn! Fuck, they didn't want her talking about that.
Yeah.
God damn.
We found the soft spot that they let you talk about it.